All right, Kanji Hunters, welcome. Welcome to the new format. Well, unfortunately, that previous format is short-lived as of now, until I figure that one out, right? If you've got any ideas on how to do that AI face animation where I can just let it record, let me know, and then we'll have some more creative avatars. But in the meantime, you get me. You get me. So here we are. Just as a kind of new thing I want to do with Kanji Hunters, just introduce you to things that I like, right? Again, part of learning a second language is just getting motivated. So one of the things I did was read. I always talk about this. But what I'm currently reading now is Manshu Ahen Squad. And that's basically the Manchu Opium Squad. So Manchu, this story starts off in like 1937. So basically, at that time, the Japanese Imperial Army, had annexed Manchuria, and so Manchuria was a puppet state of Japan at that point in time. And so in this story, it starts off this 18-year-old kid, Isamu. Isamu is traveling over to Manchu, to Manchukuo, with his family, and basically it's part of an army program. They're immigrating over, and I forgot why, but he doesn't have a father, so he's kind of his younger sister and younger brother and mother are immigrating over to Manchu. Well, in Japanese, it's Manchu. Manchu. And so they're immigrating over to Manchu. As I said, at the time, Japan was colonizing, so this was their big colony. And we'll talk more about what Manchu means at the end of this Kanji Hunter episode. But anyway, Isamu travels over there. The whole plan is to just kind of like work for the army and like earn their keep that way. He's roughing it, right? He's newly 18. It's a volunteer thing. They got to fight in the army. And then, of course, the army pays some of their bills. But anyway, and on top of that, he's learning agriculture. So he's out there learning how to farm and stuff. So Isamu is kind of on that trek, and then he gets called out. His unit or whatnot gets called out, and they're supposed to kind of put down some, rebellion of the local people. The local Chinese people at the time were kind of fighting back against the Japanese Imperial Army, and so he gets sent out there, and then he kind of turns this wounded kid over, and it was, the kid's got a gun, fires at him, and so now it's screwed up his vision, and so he's out of the army. He can't be a soldier anymore, but he's basically back at the army barracks place, and he is now basically just doesn't really have a role. He can do agricultural stuff, but he can't fight anymore, so he's kind of looked down on, as even though he went out into one skirmish. Anyway, things aren't good. Things get worse. Mom gets the plague. They call it high pistol, which is like lung pestilence. So I just kind of say that's the plague. His mom gets the plague, and so now they're in a situation where it's like, we need to get medicine for mom. But they don't have any money. Medicine is expensive. So Isamu is like the leader of the family now. Mom's like in a bad state. So he and his brother and sister, they go off into town to see if they can get this medicine. And one of the overlying things that they say in the beginning of this series is, in Manchu, the thing that is to be most taken lightly, that which is least important, is human life. So that's his mom's about to die from being sick, and this is kind of like the attitude that is returned to him. The brother and sister and Isamu, they go to the city to see if they can get this medicine that they need. Turns out the medicine is super expensive. It's going to cost, what did they say? Like 200 N This is like 200 yen of way back in the day money, right? So this is, I don't know what inflation is or all the math. I don't do this math stuff. But anyway, it's 200, imagine $200, right? And they don't have that. They have none. And so basically the guy behind the counter is like, well, you know, you can sell your younger brother and younger sister. That's something we could make a trade for. And Isamu was like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to sell my younger siblings into slavery or whatever the hell, because he's kind of like, oh, you know, they're also of the mindset at this point, basically, if you have an eye sickness, you should just eat an eyeball or something like that. So yeah, so that's going on. And anyway, long story short, on the way back, trying to figure out what they're going to do, they pass this kind of mysterious wall, and Isamu's able to look inside, and he can see that there are opium poppies being grown in here. So apparently the only two things that are worth anything in Manchu is like if you sell people, like he was, one guy was saying, sell your brother and sister into slavery, or opium, drugs. So anyway, Isamu finds this wall, and he sees behind it that there's this basically an opium field back there. Turns out it's this like really irate old dude, and they get in a fight. Isamu lives. Not a cool fight though. It's a violent comic. In case I didn't mention that before, disclaimer: this is a very violent comic book. So be ready for some adult situations and adult scenes. But anyway, Isamu kind of wins this fight, and basically he's decided he's going to take his burgeoning agricultural skills and learn how to grow and make opium, because he's going to sell opium so he can get the medicine he needs to save his mother's life. So that's his new plan. He's discovered this poppy field, and he's going to figure out how to make opium, and that's what he's going to do to save his family. For some reason, and I've never quite grasped this, but it fits in well with the story, Isamu is able to make opium better than anybody has ever to that point in time. So he's got like a corner on the market. It's called Shin Ahen, which just means new opium. And so Isamu figures this out, and he himself becomes a commodity. More on that later. Isamu now has access to this opium field, opium poppy field, right? And so he makes this plan where he's going to make opium to pay for the medicine that he needs to save his mother. So he does that. He brings it to the local gangsters. The local gangsters rough him up. The local gangsters are not cool with him. So he's going to make this new opium. Apparently, it turns out, and let's say, the characters in this story don't do opium, so don't do drugs, kids. But the characters in this story, they make it, and apparently when they let the opium addicts smoke it, it's the best thing they've ever tasted in their life. So they've made this new opium, and only Isamu knows how to make it. So anyway, Rifa is this kind of mysterious woman who is in with the Chimpa kind of Chinese mafia scene situation, and that's her, right? That's Rifa. And it's not explicitly said what her role is, what her job is, but you can tell by the way that people treat her, she's definitely got some sway. She's got some sway in the whole situation. So it looks like I'm going to have to do a voiceover nonetheless. So for those of you who are listening, that's what's happening right now. Anyway, this whole thing with Rifa, I left out just a whole bunch of vital information. So basically, Isamu tries to sell his new opium, or what he just considers opium. He tries to sell it to the Chimpa, or the Chinese mafia, and they're about to kill him, and basically this mysterious chick, Rifa, just kind of jumps in and saves his life because he's valuable. Peace. So he basically, this story, from there, they decide they start to incorporate and be very industrious about the whole selling of opium. So yes, this is a crime not novel, a crime comic book, but it's extremely interesting. You've got Isamu, who is kind of like this genius mastermind. You've got Rifa, who is another kind of she's kind of like the puppet master, we could say, of sorts. She's the puppet master of, like, you know, what's going on in the underground and whatnot. Some other really cool international characters. There's a Mongolian character named Bataru, and there's a Russian character named Kiriru. And it just, the cast of characters are super cool. The adventure itself is pretty off the wall, and it's all historically connected. There was recently an article even in the NHK talking about this whole, you know, comic book and its relation to history and what actually happened over there in that point in time. So basically, I like it. I like this story. I just kind of wanted to introduce you to something that I find relevant and interesting. And so there's that. So Manshu Ahen Squad, check it out. Also, let's take a look at how to draw Man from Manshu. All right, now Man, right there, as you can see, the top one, right? Manshu. All right, Shu is like, in America we would call it a state, right? So for example, here well, back in America, I live in New York, Shu. It's the same thing. Shu is like state, right? Here in Japan now they use ken, but anyway, this Shu was kind of like a state. So it was like an idea of a place, right? And man shu, right, is man is from like manzoku, to be full or to be bountiful, right? So the man in manzoku, right? So man shu, right? And so yeah, now let's check out how to draw that. So, thanks for watching Kanji Hunter. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time for some more Kanji Hunter.